Hey world, what up? We all know the news. Russell Westbrook has demanded a trade from the Houston Rockets. He is out of there after one season. If you're James Harden, man, you've been a part of the Rockets franchise for like 8 or 9 seasons. You had Dwight Howard, he bounced. Chris Paul, he bounced. Russell Westbrook, he bounced. Hey, but James Harden's cool, man. He's chilling. He's just chilling out at these strip clubs and everything at nighttime in Houston. So that's why, quote unquote, he said he's locked in to stay, as James Harden wants to stay with the franchise. Is what it is. Let the cat do his thing. Personally, for me, I've always stated James Harden's peak of being a number one option to win a championship was in 2018. Now, 2019 was a redemption year, but he folded. The series was tied 2-2 in the Western Conference semi-finals when Kevin Durant was hurt, and James Harden folded, man. They lost Game 5. They lost Game 6 at home, and they got bounced. And after that, I knew the Rockets were done with. Chris Paul left. Clint Capella was traded. Everything along those lines. Now you have Russell Westbrook. You had that little experiment with the small ball with Mike D'Antoni. Mike D'Antoni's gone. Daryl Morey mutually parted ways with you. If you're the Rockets, you brought in Steven Silas, and then you brought in a new GM as well. Personally, I think they need to blow it up. James Harden, I think he's chilling. He's kind of like in the Damian Lillard, quote-unquote, loyalty feel of he has 4 years left of his deal. He has a bag over $200 million, which would be cool for him. He's chilling in Houston in his home area. The fans love him. So I can't really blame him. I think personally, if he wants to win a championship and being around 30 to 31 now, he can't be a number one option anymore. Now, you can try another season to do this, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He can still be a quote-unquote number one option if you pair him up with like a Malcolm Brogdon, like a Miles Turner, some players along the side that play well alongside with him. But after that, no, sir. I think James Harden needs to go, but we're going to focus mostly on Russell Westbrook right now. Everyone's kind of thrown out the name the New York Knicks. I mean, I agree with it. There's not a lot of contenders that Russell Westbrook fits with the franchise. For example, he wouldn't fit with the 76ers based on the youth and timeline. He would not fit with the Milwaukee Bucks because Giannis needs another star that can shoot out there and be a leader, and Giannis doesn't want those headaches. Maybe even the Los Angeles Clippers as well. I doubt Kawhi Leonard wants those headaches. So Russ is in a situation to where you have to have bottom feeders of franchises that are desperate, that have been in such mediocrity for so long, they need to get out of it. New York's the number one option. You got some other teams like the Detroit Pistons, the Orlando Magic, maybe the Pacers that could require his services for box office, more tickets, and kind of change things up. I think that makes most sense is the New York Knicks for Russ's legacy. He can be a number one option again. With the Rockets, he averaged 27, 7, and 7, and he had 3 years straight of having triple doubles. He wants to get back into that mode of things. He's into fashion, he's into glamour, and being in the Eastern Conference, instant top 5 All-Star, easy. You can be an easy All-Star, easy making the playoffs. I think New York's the way to go. Now, if you're New York and you're making a trade to the Rockets would have to have a third-team trade. I think best for him would be the New York Knicks, if not that, the Indiana Pacers. Besides from that, there's just kind of teams that don't really make a lot of sense. I think the NBA is going to push for him to go to New York, which makes sense. But if you're the Rockets, you got to get a third-team trade if that's going to go down. And you got to get some moving pieces for Mr. James Harden if he is going to stay. Kind of knowing James Harden, I believe he will stay. I think they'll give it another year or two. But if he were to get traded, that's going to be a little more trickier in the NBA landscape. But let's jump into here and get my take.
Love it, get it, we salute you, thank you. Welcome back to First Day, coming to you live from above the Heineken River Deck at Pier 17. Some NBA to dive into. After an offseason that saw the Rockets part ways with head coach Mike D'Antoni and GM Daryl Morey, James Harden and Russell Westbrook have reportedly expressed concern over the direction of the team, according to Woj and Tim McMahon. Meanwhile, according to The Athletic, Harden remains locked in, while Westbrook has been uneasy about the team's accountability culture and has a desire to return to his floor general role similar to Oklahoma City. On that note, we welcome back former Harden Westbrook teammate Kendrick Perkins. Perk, good to have you back. And I'm going to start with you here, Perk. Who should the Rockets trade, Harden or Westbrook?
Well, number one, you got to trade Russell Westbrook because he verbally told the whole world and Woj and Shams that he wants out. He needs the ball in his hands. He doesn't like playing off ball. And Harden, Russell Westbrook don't make any sense. And I've always stated this. If you're James Harden, the next star player, your second option, does not need to be a point guard or a guard. You need to have a wing player. So, like, for example, Chris Middleton would be an ideal fit. And that's why I've stated with the Brooklyn Nets, when they had Kyrie and they had KD and they're looking for a third star, it baffled me when everyone was talking about bringing in Bradley Beal. I mean, KD and Kyrie need the ball in their hands. They're ball handlers. They don't need a Bradley Beal, another guard player. That's not going to be an ideal fit for Kyrie and Bradley Beal. For example, for the Nets, instead of that third star as a wing, you're going to need someone like LaMarcus Aldridge. Someone who's later in his career, a veteran, who could play that third option. That doesn't require the services as much. It's just makeup, give or take. Harden, for example, would be very well with a Chris Middleton number 2 option, a wing player, maybe even a Paul George as well. But whenever it comes to either Russell Westbrook or James Harden needing to be traded, it's got to be Russ number 1. And you have to have a discussion with James Harden. Looks like he's locked in, wants to save the Rockets. You're the new GM. You can do what you want. It is what it is. I mean, you can either keep James Harden on your franchise. You're not going to win a championship at the end of the day. Now, you can have one season of a somewhat pretty good season, maybe an MVP season for James Harden and a playoff push. But with the Lakers as being defending champions, and they're going to get even better than it is. The Clippers are locked and loaded. Then you have some other teams like the Warriors coming back in the picture. I mean, the Nuggets, you got to respect them. The Rockets are not going to be able to get over that hump, even if they trade Russell Westbrook for somewhat pretty good pieces or equal value. The Rockets are not. They're going to lose either in the first round, let alone in the second. So you really got to look into the future.
Well, Molly, it's time to blow the whole damn thing up. Listen, Russell Westbrook is already gone, okay? He's not coming back. Once he requested a trade, I know Russell Westbrook, he's done, okay? And if you're James Harden, you cannot stay there and wait to see what you're going to get back in return, because it's not going to be someone that's going to put you in a title contention, or someone that's going to that they're going to get equal value that bring in back for Russell Westbrook that's going to help you win the championship. So it's time to blow the whole thing up. Look, both of these guys are at the point of their career where they have accomplished everything individually for all their accolades. They got the MVPs, the scoring titles. The only thing left for those guys to do is to win a title. And once you trade Russell Westbrook, you're not going to get back anything. So James Harden is not going to sit around and be waiting on a rebuilding stage or a rebuilding process. So if I'm James Harden, once Russell Westbrook is traded, I'm walking in the door and talking to the owner and the GM and the.
Well, James Harden is a tool of narcissism. He has a high ego. That's why whenever Dwight Howard left out the door CP3 and Russ, it was based on James Harden. I mean, look into 2019 when Harden played with Chris Paul. He completely demolished Chris Paul and let CP3 play off ball, and CP3 was not part of the offense anymore. James Harden completely dismantled the pick and roll with Clint Capella, and Harden would dribble around 19 to 22 seconds, just stand around, and then he would do a step back contested 3 and fall on the ground every single time in the 2019 playoffs. Terrible basketball, and no one wants to play around that. You pretty much got to be a 3-and-D player if you're playing against or playing with James Harden. James Harden's the spotlight. He's the star show. You got to be a side piece. That's basically it. And it's the James Harden system. He doesn't like to play in a true offensive system. Mike D'Antoni was not alpha enough to tell him to his face and create the own system. And it is what it is. I think Steven Silas as a new coach, I don't think he can get in James Harden's face and be respected enough. This is the first time he'll be a true head coach. And Steven Silas, there's a couple of interviews. Cool cat. I like his demeanor, but he smiles a lot. He's too quote-unquote nice. And James Harden's not going to play with that. It's not going to happen, man. I mean, that's why Russell Westbrook is electing to leave as well. He needs the ball in his hands, and James Harden doesn't know how to play an offensive system. Well, maybe he does know how to play, but he doesn't want to. He's got a big ego.
Coach and say, hey, my time is up. It's time for me to go. I need a new destination. It's time for me to go somewhere where I could compete and win a title. So I said they need.
Real quick, since James Harden has a high ego, he's still deluded enough to think he can be a number one option to win a championship. He still thinks he's quote unquote one of, or if not the best player in the world, and he doesn't want to leave Houston. He's kind of like in that Damian Lillard sideshow, to where he wants to stay quote unquote loyal to a franchise and try to be the number one guy, and the franchise has to pretty much bow down to him. Damian Lillard is a little more flexible. James Harden is more of a narcissist when it comes down to it. But like, for example, Harden's not going to elect to go to be a second option for the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis. I doubt he'll leave Houston to go to a place like that. Or I doubt he'll want to elect to go to the Philadelphia 76ers and be a number one option there and mentor the young guys. He's comfortable where he is. He's got the bag. He's got the girls. He's got the nightlife. Let him chill. He's kind of like a Paul George. He just wants to chill, man. And I mean, at the end of the day, he's been great. His peak was in 2018. I mean, he's still averaging close to 40 when it comes down to it. I mean, which is amazing. But Harden's still not going to be a number one guy that can lead you to a championship anymore. That timeline has passed.
To trade both of them. They have to. It's time to blow it up.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. And yet, I would say, if I'm the Rockets at least, I know Harden may be unhappy, whatever, but if I have him under contract, I'm going to say what Dr. Buss told Kobe Bryant once upon a time. I got a 5-carat diamond. I'm not trading it for 5 1-carat diamonds, James. I'm sorry. You're going to have to bear with me. Like, you're under contract. I'm not.
Well, in that scenario, Kobe Bryant was young. I mean, Kobe Bryant tried to request trades 3 different times in his career. One was in 2000. The other, I believe, was in 2004 or 2003. But they elected to keep Kobe and trade Shaq. And then one was in, I believe, after the 2007 season. So Kobe Bryant tried to go to the Chicago Bulls, the LA Clippers, and, Dr. Burrs, of course, brought him back in. But you got to remember, Kobe Bryant, those time periods, he was around 22, 25, 27, 28. James Harden is around, he's about to be 31 years of age. I'm not saying he's declining in a bad way, but he's not himself in 2018. He can't be a number one option to win a championship. Again, he's an amazing scorer. He can give you 35, 40 easy a night. I'm talking about true impact. It's slightly going down.
Just going to unload you because you want to be unloaded. We have to get equal value for you, and that is going to be very difficult because there aren't that many players on your level. So, and once you move Westbrook, by the way, you don't know. You're right, Perk, you're not going to get a Westbrook-level player back. But Harden has shown he doesn't necessarily need that to build a team around him that can be very competitive. And once you clear that salary off your books, you have a lot.
You would think ESPN, after a couple of weeks or months, would actually turn off Kendrick Perkins' mic when he's huffing and puffing out here, man. Big boy Perk.
More flexibility to maneuver. A clever GM might figure out a way to put a team there that Harden likes. Now, I'm not suggesting that winds up happening. I think it's an under 50-50 shot. But as long as that's the case, I'm moving Westbrook first. I'm not going to move the thing that makes my team special just for, spare parts. If someone blew me away, if Golden State made me an offer for the number 2 pick and this and that, and they could throw a player and the whole thing, and I would have to consider it. And you're going to get a much smaller haul, obviously, for Westbrook right now, given his contract and his perceived value. Nevertheless, I would move Westbrook first and hold on to Harden until the absolute last minute, when I absolutely had to trade him to try to get the most for him.
Well, you got to think about it. If you keep Harden on your franchise for like a year or two, you're going to lose in the second round. You're not, maybe one conference finals appearance. I doubt that. But your peak is probably going to be a second round appearance. I mean, there's only 2 trade proposals you can go. If you send Russell Westbrook to the Indiana Pacers, you can get a Malcolm Brogdon. You can get a Miles Turner. You can probably put a third team in that trade and get like a Tobias Harris. So, for example, like the Pacers, they'll send Victor Oladipo to the 76ers. The 76ers give Tobias Harris to the Rockets. So, I mean, that, for example, could give you a year or two to where, that gives you a good chance if you're Harden to pretty much go after contention. So, kind of give you guys a visual. The starting lineup of that trade would be Malcolm Brogdon at the 1, James Harden at the 2, Robert Covington at the 3, Tobias Harris at the 4, the Miles Turner at the 5. Now, that's a very ideal team that fits the James Harden quote-unquote system. You can go that route if you're trading Russell Westbrook and keeping Harden. That's a team that fits around Harden. I'll be cool with, but Harden would have to stay there for 1 or 2 more years as the number one option. After that, no way. A second trade proposal probably would be, again, like I said, you trade Russ to the Bucks, and in return you get Chris Middleton. He will be your number 2 guy. You'll get Eric Bledsoe in that trade, and then maybe Brook Lopez or something along the lines of that. So in that scenario, you can have a starting lineup of Eric Bledsoe, James Harden, Chris Middleton, PJ Tucker, and then at the 5, if you can either get Brook Lopez or not, then you could probably get Serge Ibaka. But those are the 2 main scenarios I can kind of see if you're keeping Harden on the team and making trades. Besides that, there's not really any other ideal fits. And if you're going that route, it's going to be a season or 2 for Harden to be the number 1 guy. Harden looks like he's locked in, so I would actually look and call up Indiana and call up Milwaukee if you're the Houston Rockets, if you want to pair those guys with Harden. Now, if you're trying to go a different direction of blow it up, you're going to get the highest value for Russ and Harden. So you can make separate trades or 3-team trades, and you want to stack up on draft picks. You want to get some young cats out there. And you got to remember, the Western Conference is stacked and loaded, meaning, you got the Warriors coming back in playoff contention, the playoff picture. You got the Pelicans finally coming back up and healthy. Who knows about the Phoenix Suns, but, this is a good chance. The Thunder right now, they're about to blow it up, and they're getting all these first-round picks with Sam Presti, and they haven't even traded Chris Paul yet. So the Thunder know what they're doing. They're looking ahead. I think the Rockets should do the same thing, especially after they traded away a couple first-round picks with that CP3 and Russ trade.
First of all, I don't agree with you, but there's no surprise there, Max Kellerman. Of course I don't agree with you, but I will tell you this. Why the hell wouldn't you get something significant for a James Harden? The man, listen, he's owed $132.9 million over the next 3 years. Russell Westbrook is owed $132.6, all right? Both of them have an option, a player's option, after the next 2 seasons. We get all of that. But I think the question that needs to be asked, and first of all, I completely agree with Kendrick Perkins. He's right on the money. They got to blow the whole thing up now, because the reality is that if you're Houston and you've got a guy in Westbrook that wants out, let me tell you what Houston has been saying for months and stuff, and what they, without question, are saying now, Kendrick Perkins. Dwight Howard was there. Harden wanted him out. They lost in the playoffs a couple of years ago, or last year rather. Harden was at the press conference. He said, "We all know what the problem is." To the press, walked off the podium, went down to the office with Maury and everybody else, and said, "I want Chris, CP3 up out of here."
Yeah, that was pretty petty in that interview. Pretty much blatantly called out Chris Paul needs to go.
Right now, Westbrook wants out. And if you're Harden, you got a situation where people are looking at you, right or wrongly, and they're saying, okay, are you a problem? Now, we know you average a minimum of 20.
Well, like I said before, Harden needs to be paired. The second guy needs to be a scoring wing. When you picked up Dwight Howard, they had to pick up Dwight Howard back into 2014 because he was a star free agent. The Rockets, they lost it was Harden's first season in 2013. They were the 8th seed in the playoffs. They went against the Thunder and they lost in 6. And this was a new experiment with Harden on the Thunder, or on the Rockets, becoming a star player. So they had to pair him with another star. So Dwight Howard's the only main option. It worked. Worked out. They made a conference finals appearance. Besides from that, you got Chris Paul, the next experiment. You almost made the finals. You almost won the championship. Chris Paul got hurt. It's just bad luck, bad timing situation. That only worked out for a year or 2, basically. And it didn't go through. Then you had Russ for 1 season. It was pretty much forced. and it didn't go through. Basically, you need a pairing with a star. You need a pairing with an all-star wing. Like I said before, I think a great fit would be Chris Middleton. I really believe Chris Middleton would be an ideal second option for James Harden. And if not Chris Middleton, then you just got to get some role players, like I mentioned in that Miles Turner, Malcolm Brogdon, type trade. Besides from that, James Harden kind of likes to go solo dolo anyways.
29 over the last 4 years. We know that over the last 3, you averaged 32 plus, and you're just unstoppable offensively. You're a magician on the offensive side of the ball. But if you've got teammates either you don't want to play with or don't want to play with you, and there's no championship to show for all the effort and all the money, eventually the organization is going to look at you too. But it doesn't mean they're going to be stupid and lose him for nothing. So now, here's where it gets tricky. When we bring up Brooklyn, because KP brought up Brooklyn at the top of the show. Well, you got Spencer Dinwiddie, you got Karis LeVert, you've got picks, you got all of those things that Brooklyn could offer, and Lord knows what else. You know what else? Houston wouldn't want to hear this. A lot of people wouldn't want to hear this, especially Houston, because if you're Tillman Fertitta and the Houston Rockets, why would you want to help Daryl Morey, who just left you? But he is the president of basketball operations in Philadelphia. They do have somebody by the name of Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid. You're talking about somebody like a Ben Simmons.
Kendrick Perkins out here is like Rick Ross recording Maybach Music 6 while writing his lyrics, just huffing and puffing. On a serious note, if you're Philly, you don't trade Ben Simmons and or Joel Embiid for James Harden. Actually, let me rephrase that. You can trade away Joel Embiid and get James Harden. I'm cool with that, but you don't trade away Ben Simmons for Harden. The Philadelphia 76ers are young. This is their 3rd season they've been together. They've been in a great trend. Keep them as it is. Ben Simmons will be a generational talent. Book it. If you're the Rockets, I definitely would make that trade for Harden and you get Ben Simmons. And then if you trade Russell Westbrook for someone else, get draft picks, that'd be a great direction. But I'm not the GM. It is what it is. If you're the Rockets, you do not trade James Harden to the Brooklyn Nets. I know a lot of people said that for Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert. No, sir. No.
In my estimation, along with additional players, potentially picks as well, to pair Harden with Embiid, because you stuck with Al Horford, okay, and basically with Tobias Harris. I don't think you stuck, because I think Tobias Harris would do well with the right teammates. At the end of the day, those are just 2, and there's going to be a slew of other offers. But if I'm Houston, Max, I know I can get significantly more for Harden. I'm not saying that Russell Westbrook is not going. KP's right. He's gone. Russell Westbrook ain't making that decision and then going to retract.
I don't really see Harden fitting with any other contender money-wise and move-wise. Russell Westbrook, no, but Harden, you can't really find a trade. Like, if you want to trade him to the Clippers, ideally that'll be the best fit for him to be paired with Kawhi, but the Clippers don't have enough assets. They traded away 6 first-round picks for PG. And, if you're the Thunder, if you're trading away, or if you're the Clippers and trading Paul George, you're not going to leave Paul George to the Rockets by himself. That doesn't make any sense. And then, the 76ers thing, you're going to have to give up Ben Simmons. And if you put Harden with Embiid, I don't like that fit, man. It's just, I don't know. I think Harden's going to stay with the Rockets, man. With new GM and everything like that, they're not going to blow it up. They'll trade away Russ, but they're not going to trade away Harden. And plus, there's nothing really intriguing that you can get for Harden straight up in the package. I don't see it happen. Russ is going to be gone, but Harden, they're going to retool with him, at least for one more season.
That's not how he's built. If he said so to them, and he said it publicly, he wants out. He's out. So you're going to move him. But the first order of business, in my estimation, if you can get the farm for James Harden, you do it. You do it. Because you don't know what additional assets you're going to get for Harden that will enable you to also unload Russell Westbrook for some additional assets. That's how you play that game, in my estimation.
Well, I disagree about the order in which you trade them. I think you get rid of Westbrook first, and you hold on to Harden until you absolutely have to let him go. That said, you're right. It's almost impossible.
Well, no. You got to figure out if you want to blow it up, or if you just want to build around James Harden for another season or two, or maybe even longer than that, that's what you got to do if you're the GM. If you know you're going to keep James Harden for a season or two, then you trade Russell Westbrook for, again, like that Pacers trade I said, or the Bucks trade. Pieces that fit around Harden. If you know you're going to blow it up with Harden and Russ, then you make trades not for big contracts, but you trade them for picks, young guys, and flexibility and the farm, basically.
Possible to get equal value for Harden. Ben Simmons? Ben Simmons, now you're talking. If they're serious, if number one, he can demonstrate that the injury is not going to change him as a player. He's going to be his same himself. And given his age, his size, and his skill set, where the only thing this dude is missing is a shot.
I'm going to come in. Go ahead,
more
Perk.
open threes for opponents than anyone since he got into the league. Yes, you have to consider there's a 5-carat diamond for at least a 4.5. Yes, they would have to consider doing that if that were on the table.
Go ahead, KP.
Max, first of all, let me address you like a mannequin, all right? Because you just made me so mad. Do not ever compare Kobe Bryant's situation with James Harden's situation. Those are two completely different situations. Kobe Bryant is Mr. Laker, okay? He is Los Angeles. He had already won multiple championships. That's a whole nother scenario. Now, to Stephen A. Smith's part, he's right on the money.
No,
because
it's not. That's not why Bucks didn't want to trade him, Perk.
Max, can I finish? Okay, I know you haven't seen me in a while, but can I finish talking? I did not interrupt you, all right? Listen, if you could trade James Harden right now and get back LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, and a pick, this year's pick, a lottery pick, you win. And if you could trade them to Philly and get back Ben Simmons along with the lottery pick, you win again. So in what I'm telling you, Max.
Did he say? I think you said if he traded him for Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, and a pick, which Brooklyn doesn't even have. Oh, Lord, man. Perk.
Is the Rockets are about to go into a rebuilding stage. So if you could get some young studs along with some high draft picks for James Harden, who's over 30, and he only have so many years left in the tank, and we know that he want to compete for a title, you do it. You do it.
As a real championship contending team, James Harden cannot be your number one option anymore. His peak for that was in 2018 and 2019. Once he entered 2020, I knew that was not the case anymore. He blew the timeline. LeBron finally went to the Lakers with AD. Kawhi came with Paul George. The Warriors are back reloaded. He messed up the timeline. It's done.
With no questions asked, especially once Russell Westbrook is gone. You got to make that happen.
Max, go ahead real quick. I'll come back in. Go ahead real quick, Max. I'll go back. I'll come back in.
I'll be quick about this. Perk, there's a big difference between, I like Karis LeVert a lot, and Dinwiddie's a nice player. There's a big difference between those guys and Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is potentially an MVP player, and he's already more than just a normal all-star. He's the best defensive player when he was active last year, and he's like he's an offensive genius, just can't shoot. And he's 6'10", and he's young. If he's returned from injury, you can build a championship franchise around him. LeVert's a very nice player. So is Dinwiddie. Not the same thing.
Yeah, that was asinine for KP to actually mention Spencer Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert and then Ben Simmons trade proposal. Again, the only true main young guy you can go for is a swap for James Harden for Ben Simmons. If I'm the Rockets, you definitely do that. Ben Simmons is around 24 years of age. He's going to be a generational talent. I mean, he could be a possible MVP in the future. And this is the best time you blow things up if you're the Rockets. I assume the Rockets are going to keep Harden for another season or two because there's not going to be a true big offer or package they can get. And I know Harden could be a hard head, and he wants to stay where he is. But wishes on that. We're going to end it on this. Basically, they need to let go of Russell Westbrook. I think they need to blow it up with Harden, Russ, get him out of there. I expect the Rockets with the new GM and head coach, I think they're going to keep Harden on the team. And I think they're going to make a trade to pretty much put filter options and sidekicks alongside him. And I expect the Rockets probably to lose in the first round next season if that is the case. But we'll leave it on there. We'll find out more breaking news and more news coverage alongside free agency and the offseason.